Most people think that glucose spikes are something only diabetics should worry about. But in reality, they do affect all of us every single day. When I first began paying attention to my energy levels, I noticed a pattern. So start the day with something quite quick, like a bowl of cereals, maybe fruit juice, and within an hour, I would feel a sudden dip, a loss of focus, mild irritability, and hunger again. It was only after I began researching blood sugar responses that I realized what was happening. My glucose was spiking and then crashing, and then taking my energy and concentration with it. That experience led me to explore the science of glucose control, a topic that goes far beyond diabetes. So in this video, we'll break down what a glucose spike is, why it matters for your health, and the practical steps in order to keep it stable. But let's start with what is a glucose spike. So when we do eat carbs, the digestive system converts them into glucose, which is our body's main fuel source. Glucose then enters the bloodstream and raises blood sugar levels. In response, the pancreas releases insulin, which is a hormone that acts like a key, helping glucose move into the muscle and liver cells for energy or storage. A glucose spike happens when blood sugar rises sharply and quickly after a meal. For example, after eating white bread, pastries, sweetened drinks on an empty stomach. This sudden rise pushes the pancreas to release a large burst of insulin to bring levels back down. Now, the problem isn't the spike itself. Our body can handle occasional fluctuation, but the frequency and amplitude of those spikes over time. Repeated sharp peaks can stress the system, leading to fatigue, cravings, and in the long run, insulin resistance, which is actually a precursor to metabolic disorders. Now, how insulin works and why spikes matter. Think of insulin as the traffic controller of energy. When glucose rises, insulin signals cells to absorb it and store the excess as glycogen in the liver and muscle. But if there's already enough glycogen stored, the body converts the remaining glucose into fat for long-term storage. Frequent high spikes make cells gradually less responsive to insulin, like ignoring a message that's been sent too many times. This condition is called insulin resistance. It forces the pancreas to produce even more insulin to achieve the same effect, which eventually leads to elevated baseline insulin and glucose level. So why does this matter even if you're healthy? Because those fluctuations affect how you feel every day. Large spikes are often followed by sudden drops, triggering tiredness, irritability, and cravings for more sugar or caffeine. Over time, the pattern contributes to weight gain, low energy, and inflammation. Now let's have a look at the link between spikes, inflammation, and cravings. So each glucose spike temporarily increases oxidative stress, a burst of free radicals, and activates inflammatory pathways. In small amounts, that's normal, but repeated daily spikes keep inflammation chronically elevated. Studies show that post-meal spikes increases markers both linked to cardiovascular and metabolic risk. So inflammation from frequent spikes doesn't just affect long-term health, it also affects your mood. When glucose swings dramatically, your brain's access to steady fuel is disrupted. That can trigger brain fog, poor concentration, or even anxiety-like symptoms. So when people say they feel hungry, which is hungry and angry, is just not in the head, it's literally the blood sugar crashing after a rapid rise. Now let's have a look at the main triggers of glucose spikes. The most common cause of glucose spikes is the quality and the timing of the carbs that we eat. Refined foods such as white bread, pasta, pastries, breakfast cereals, sweet drinks are digested almost instantly, flooding the bloodstream with glucose. Eating those foods alone or on an empty stomach magnifies the effect because there's nothing to slow the absorption. The faster glucose enters, the higher and steeper the spike. Liquid calories such as fruit juice or soda are even faster. Since the fiber has been removed, they can raise glucose in minutes. Another frequent trigger is meal order. Starting a meal with bread or dessert before vegetables and protein sends glucose soaring. While reversing that order, greens first, then protein and fat, then carbs, can cut the spike by 30 to 40%. Even stress and lack of sleep play a role. When you're under stress, cortisol and adrenaline raise glucose to provide an emergency fuel, even without eating. Sleep deprivation makes cells more insulin resistant the next day. Now, let's go through practical ways to reduce the spikes. First of all, eat in the right order. Start always with vegetables. The fiber coats the gut lining and slows carbs absorption. Follow with protein and then fats. And then finish with starches or fruits. Think of it as the fiber shield. Second, it has been shown that adding vinegar or lemon before meals can lower the glucose rise by up to 30%. It slows gastric emptying and improves insulin sensitivity. Third, never eat carbs alone. Pair them with protein, fiber, or healthy fats. For example, fruits with nuts or rice with lentil and olive oil. Mixed meals flatten the curve dramatically. 4. Move after you eat. Even a 10-minute walk or a light housework helps muscle take up that glucose for fuel, reducing spikes and improving digestion. And then the last one, but not least, prioritize breakfast protein. As we've already covered in other videos, a high protein breakfast, about 30 grams of protein, stabilizes glucose for hours and reduces mid-morning cravings. Small, consistent habits like this compound over time, giving you steady energy throughout the day. Last part, let's have a look at the benefits of stable glucose levels. Keeping glucose stable does more than prevent tiredness. It supports long-term metabolic health, hormonal balance, and mental clarity. When blood sugar is steady, insulin levels stay lower, reducing fat storage and inflammation. People who flatten their daily spikes often report clearer thinking, better sleep, and fewer afternoon crashes. Lower variability in glucose has been associated with improved longevity and reduced cardiovascular risk. Stable glucose means a more resilient metabolism, one that burns fast, efficiently between meals and protects against chronic disease. Let's recap the essential. Glucose spike often happen when we eat refined carbs or unbalanced meals that digest too quickly. Over time, these spikes can drive inflammation, fatigue, and cravings. The good news is that small, practical choices like meal order, vinegar, fiber, protein, and movement can flatten the curve and completely change how you feel day to day. I noticed it myself. Once I began applying these steps, my energy no longer dipped mid-morning and my focus stayed steady until lunch. That's the real-life impact of controlling those. Controlling the glucose is not perfection, but just awareness and small adjustment. In the next episode, we'll explore how greens, seeds, and nuts support glucose control naturally, and why plant variety is key to a healthy metabolism. Thank you for watching.